Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. And for your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of 1 hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about what's going on in the world today, topical issues. Colm Brennan, my guest this evening, is a longtime friend of mine, and we're going to be talking about topical issues as of this date, the 9th of September. And let's get started here. Colm and I have been associated in a number of different venues. The t-shirt he's wearing, Alliance for Democracy, is a great organization. I'm a member of that too, and a few other instances too. And I run across him unexpectedly when I'm in some sort of a political discussion group, and there Colm shows up because he's a genuine far-left lefty, and he's so far off the other end. Joe Stein is a conservative in his estimation. So thanks for coming on, babe. It had been a while since I've seen you. This last meeting. And the meeting was about a gathering of Bernie Sanders supporters, yeah. And we'll be talking about that after we talk about who you are personally, because what's going on with Bernie Sanders and what's happening in this election, I want us to talk about that some more too, all right?
Okay.
So, your name is Colm Brennan. What kind of a name is that?
Actually, it's Colm as in a pillar.
Oh.
Brennan.
Uh-huh.
Actually, I was named after a monk, a famous monk who worked on the Book of Kells, which is a famous book that in Ireland that was about the religious Old Testament, etc., and had all this scroll work around the outside, and that's what Colm Kill did. He was originally a warrior that became a monk, and he lived in like a, I guess it would be like a big tower just off the coast of Ireland, between Ireland and Scotland.
So you've got a long history back through generations there.
Yeah, I actually have, my family tree goes all the way back to the bastard son of Charlemagne. So I got blue blood in my veins, and if someone calls me a bastard, I don't have a problem with it.
All right, so if I were to ask your best friend, who is Colm, what would your best friend say? Colm is what? Be your best friend.
Colm is a guy that if you get on his good side, he'll do almost anything in the world for you.
And if
you get on his bad side, he'll do everything he can to bring you down.
Ooh, that's pretty strong, pretty powerful, yeah. And when and where were you born?
I was born in Edinburgh, Scotland in January 26, 1951. Wow.
That's kind of a while ago.
Yep.
And we talked a little bit about your cultural heritage, national. Any comments about that the viewers would be curious about?
Yeah. I'm Irish. The only reason that I was born in Scotland, my dad was there for a job, and my sister and myself were born there. And then we went back to Ireland, and we lived there for about 6 years. Then we came out to the United States, and we settled in the great Los Angeles metropolis.
And what year was that about?
1957.
Oh, okay. So you don't have that accent from back there anymore. You sound like a Los Angelenos.
No. I lost the accent right away because as a kid you lose your brogue, as they say. And I always used to have my friends would come over and they'd say, "Boy, your parents really talk weird." Like my mom would see, if you said the word cookie, she would say, "Would you like a cookie?" So that set them apart from everybody else.
Cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh.
Yeah, good old Molly Malone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've always had a real pleasure listening to John Gary and those kinds of people. Yeah, one of my favorite singers over the years. So, a religious preference, do you have one now? Did you have one before?
I was brought up as a Catholic, but right now I'm agnostic, I guess I would say, maybe even an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
And through my years, as I get older, I learn more and more and trust less and less. And I think you have to always keep yourself abreast of what's going on and always look out for yourself, because you're the only one that's really going to look out for you in the long run.
Are you doing that?
Trying the best I can.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I have a medical problem.
Will you say a few words about your medical problem?
Yeah, it's called cervical dystonia. What it is, it's a movable disorder. It's similar to Parkinson's, but not quite the same thing. I have a tendency of my neck to move my head to the right involuntarily.
Mm-hmm.
I have no reason why it happened. They don't know what caused it. It's just one of those things. And I went about it by doing research and by finding out that there were clinical studies available. I had been with Kaiser Medical, and then I went to OHSU, where I found out they were doing a clinical study on cervical dystonia. And that way I was able to get the medicine for free, and also later on, after the study was completed 2 years later, my doctor's now able to give me the medicine every 10 weeks instead of every 12 weeks, which makes a whole difference.
OHSU, Oregon
Health Science University.
Yeah, here in Portland. And it's better being with them than where you were before.
It is financially, and also better medically, because I can get the Botox, same Botox people use for plastic surgery, you know, to make yourself look good. They put in the back of my neck to try and stop the muscles from sending signals to the brain. The muscles are supposed to get together and say, well, you know, sending out signal is no good, so we should stop sending out signal. And that's supposed to relieve some of the pressure and the tension.
Does it help some?
It helps quite a bit. I mean, I had it like a couple of weeks ago, so I'm in fairly decent shape.
Mm-hmm.
If this was toward the end of the 10 weeks, I'd be a lot worse off.
Okay. So it affects your daily functioning?
Yeah, it does, to some degree. I mean, you know, I function normally like anybody else. I have some problems. Sometimes I have some swallowing problems, but that might be because I don't chew my food long enough. But other than that, I don't really have any major problems.
All right. So you gave up Catholicism.
Yeah, I gave up Catholicism because I thought, I went to school in Torrance, California, and I met a lot of priests who really were very secular priests. They were Franciscan priests,
Mm-hmm.
and they weren't very good at managing the school, as a matter of fact. The bookkeeper made off with $200,000 and went around the world. But the priest, one priest sat me down, he said, "Hey laddie, you got to sit down and smell the roses, and the other thing, you got to watch out for the almighty dollar." And so these were priests from Chicago who had gravitated out to Southern California, and were very good people that you could actually talk to in a normal way, and there was no authoritative type of figure, and we had a lot of good discussions, and we talked about religion, we talked about the church, about how the church is just an institution that's been around too long, and like large institutions, becomes corrupt and no longer seems meaningful. At least that's the way I look at it, and that's the way a lot of the priests also looked at it.
I thought the Jesuits were more leftist, more social concerns than the Franciscans. Is that true or not?
The Jesuits are more intellectual. than the Franciscans. I think the Franciscans are more down to earth, easier to talk to. Jesuits tend to speak on a level above you. They kind of like to preach. They tend to lord over you because they feel they are intellectually superior.
Wasn't the Pope a Jesuit?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Never mind. We're traveling down the wrong road.
Right.
And your formal education?
My formal education was I went through Catholic school through high school, and then I enrolled in Cal State University of Dominguez Hills, which basically had just started up in Southern California and was a very, very liberal institution. In fact, we used to have classes out on the lawn and do things like that, and I majored in business, but found out that I really didn't like business because I wasn't willing to toe the line, and I was interviewed by IBM and a lot of the big corporations, but I didn't want to go work for them. So I ended up going work for smaller firms in Los Angeles.
So you're anti-big business?
Definitely anti-big business. I think big business squashes people and takes a lot of the soul out of the individual. I find myself as an artist at heart, but I guess a frustrated artist, you could say.
Are you a socialist or a capitalist?
I would say I'm a socialist, definitely. As Ralph Nader's dad once said, there'll always be capitalism, there'll always be socialism around to bail out capitalism. And as we have seen in the last, when we had the major recession in 2008, and when everything went in the dumps, it was the taxpayers that bailed out all the capitalists. It was the taxpayers that bailed out Donald Trump and his stupid megalomania institutions.
Be very careful what you're saying, because maybe somebody around here might get mad at you. Okay. And are you doing any gainful employment nowadays?
Nowadays, I still do a little bit of property management. Probably one of the most liberal property managers in Portland. My brother and I have kept rents fairly low for a long period of time, and now have discovered that we have to start raising rents because we're way, way below market, which is becoming a major problem, because when you're way below market, you have to increase the rents, and that's not good for your tenants. And in the long run, it's a bad situation.
Property management, what does that mean? That's a property management, the Trump Towers or apartment complexes?
We're talking about single-family houses, basically. So you're talking about families, and you're talking about families on fixed incomes and people that are just getting by. And as you can see in Portland today, it's impossible to find housing that's reasonable.
It is. It's crazy in Portland.
Yeah.
And the prices keep going up, and people can't afford it, and you're going to have more people homeless and living in the Springwater corridor and homeless shelters, and
right.
Never mind, let's go into something else. Do you have a partner, a girlfriend, a wife, a husband, a boyfriend?
I have a wife.
You have a wife, huh?
Yeah, she was a nurse for, I guess, 20 or 30 years. Developed fibromyalgia and no longer does nursing. Now she just lives on Social Security. And she was a dialysis nurse. It's the last thing she did before she got fibromyalgia and had to stop working. How
long you been together?
We've been together since 1999, married since 2000. We met through my sister and through the Grateful Dead.
The Grateful Dead?
Yeah, the Grateful Dead, a music group that just keeps on giving and giving and giving.
You are so weird. That's why I love you, do you know that?
Well, the Grateful Dead is not what most people think it is. Grateful Dead is more of a jazz band than they're not a heavy metal band of any means.
Yeah. Politically, are you left or right? You already said you're a socialist, so that cancel that question.
Yeah.
Memberships in political or social organizations. Any memberships that you want to share with the viewers?
Yeah, I belong to the Alliance for Democracy.
Alliance for Democracy. Say a few words about the Alliance for Democracy.
Well, Alliance for Democracy is a group that basically feels that the major parties are not doing what needs to be done for the people, and that we need another party that will help the people actually find their own voice. And as it says, Alliance for Democracy, we're for democracy. We don't feel the Republicans and the Democrats are democratic institutions.
Mm-hmm.
They basically, it's just the difference between Tweedledum and Tweedledee, and you never know which one you're going to get. So either way, the world policy isn't going to change and foreign policy isn't going to change. And they're all for these treaties that are bad for our workers and that are bad for our country overall. It's only good for the people on the top, and it will eventually lead to the elimination of the middle class if things keep going the way they're going.
Elimination of the middle class, that's pretty heavy-duty comment.
Yeah, it is, but if you look at the laws and you look at what's happening and you look at the way jobs are being exported all over the world, there really isn't much left for the middle class except maybe people that are going to be actually doing work that can't be exported, like hands-on work like carpenters, electricians, and people like that. But otherwise, if you're an accountant, they can export your job to India. If you're any kind of pencil pusher or white class worker, they can very easily export your job and you have no recourse.
How are we going to reverse that tendency or that direction that we seem to be heading in here in America?
Well, I think we have to start with getting rid of all these different treaties that we have, like NAFTA and CAFTA, the World Trade Organization, Security Pacific Partnership, and now the Trans-Pacific Partnership. All these trade agreements say they're for free trade, but it's not about free trade. It's about getting the lowest possible denominator and getting people to work for as little as possible and destroying living wage jobs in this country.
Then why do they call them free trade agreements if they're not really free trade?
It's just a euphemistic term that they use to deceive the people into thinking that they're getting free trade, which is not the case.
How do we get the people to recognize what's really going on?
Well, that's a big question, because most people either are too busy to be informed or don't want to be informed, or too busy watching infotainment and getting their news from the boob tube, and as a result they get what they pay for. What they get is just whatever the mainstream media wants to feed them.
Where do you get your information that lets you make informed decisions about what's important?
Well, I read Nation magazine, I go online, I look at different websites, I talk to individuals, I talk to like-minded individuals, and I make up my own mind about different issues.
Mm-hmm. Were you a Bernie supporter?
Yeah, I was a Bernie Sanders supporter, a big Bernie supporter. In fact, I called into different states to try and help Bernie get elected in those states.
How do you feel about Bernie Sanders today?
I think he swung too much towards Hillary, but at least he does have one thing called ourrevolution.com, which he's keeping it going, which will hopefully keep this frustration that people have with the system an outlet for those people, and maybe a beginning of a third party that will really last, unlike what Ralph Nader tried to do with the Green Party.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's quite a challenge to really have an effective alternative to the two corporate parties. I'm looking forward in my remaining years to seeing that come to fruition. Yeah. Okay. Persons from the past or alive today that you look up to or admire?
Persons in the past. Well,
yeah.
I have to say Jesus Christ, definitely.
And you're an atheist? Can you say Jesus Christ?
Well, Jesus Christ, whether he was a prophet, whatever he was, he believed in equity for the small guy, and I think that's really what you have to take from it.
Was he a socialist?
I would definitely say yes.
All right. Anybody alive today that you admire, look up to besides FDR or one of those characters?
Well, FDR is dead, obviously.
Oh, of course, sorry about that.
But I did look up to Ralph Nader, but I think Ralph Nader sold out because he got too involved in his own thing rather than starting a party. I do look up to Mary Robinson, who came out of Ireland, who's done a lot of good for the United Nations and for kids all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I still look up to certain artists that I believe are still true to their original foundation, that they haven't sold out completely. And I can't really put my finger on one person that I would say would be a major influence, other than, like I said, about Jesus Christ and his views.
What artists you're talking about that you look up to? Any names come to mind?
Well, I look up to the Grateful Dead, for one, an organization who has been very good about establishing charitable foundations to help keep music in schools and donate their time and energy to have people become more aware of what's going on. They have gotten involved in the political process and have tried to open the minds of the so-called hippies,
Mm-hmm.
that there's more to life than just music, sex, and rock and roll, and they need to take a part in the whole world picture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's take a break, and then we'll come back and talk about topical issues. We got a whole list of things that we can talk about, and we're going to need 2 hours because you gave me a big long list here.
Okay.
Let's take a break, Mr. Director. Okay, we're back. Thanks for staying tuned, and for you viewers who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like my friend Colm here, and we're going to be talking about what's going on in our country today and topical issues and a whole bunch of other stuff. So hang in there and we'll get going again. Now, we agreed that we were going to talk about presidential candidates for starters. And what do you think of Barack Obama? Was he born in America or what?
I don't think I would want to get into that.
Okay.
I think he was born in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you. But as far as the whole thing about the Muslim thing, I think it's a red herring. I mean, Barack Obama can only do so much anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And any president can only do so much.
Mm-hmm.
Because basically what they tell him is, this is what you can do and this is what you can't do. And if you do what they say you can't do, there are going to be consequences.
Mm-hmm.
Those consequences, since he has a family, I'm sure they said, well, if you go over the line, well, you just kiss your family goodbye.
What does that mean, kiss your family goodbye?
It
You
means,
take them out, kill them, or what?
yeah. I believe that when you get that high up in politics, that death is a real reality. And the people we're dealing with don't give a hoot about human life.
Mm-hmm.
If they did, they wouldn't be having all these wars we're having.
All these wars. If you cared about human life, you wouldn't have all these wars. Maybe they have other motivations that are more powerful or more important than what we're thinking they're considering when they're talking about killing innocent people like drones and that sort of thing. You feel Obama's justified in having drone warfare and taking out people that he thinks need to be killed?
No, I don't. I mean, you can't be judge, jury, and executioner. And our country stands for democracy, and we believe that people should have a fair trial. I don't think it's fair to go out and decide somebody is evil, therefore that person does not deserve a trial and can be taken out by a drone. I mean, drone warfare is great for people that think, well, it's just like looking at a video screen and they're there 1 minute, the next minute they're gone, poof.
I've heard that there are some of those pilots who sit in those places like that and looking at a video screen are experiencing PTSD even though they are sitting in a nice secure position. It still affects them psychologically, killing innocent people, even though they're told that these are not innocent people they're taking out. Why is Obama for these trade agreements?
I think Obama's for the trade agreements because he's been told that this is what's going to happen, and I don't think he has much choice in the matter. Mm-hmm. I mean, he can protest all he wants, but when push comes to shove, he really doesn't have the power to do what he says he can do. I mean, he can say, well, I'm not going to sign the TPP, but Hillary Clinton will sign it, I'm sure, or Donald Trump will sign it, or whomever else it is. So,
TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Right.
Didn't Trump said he didn't like that? Isn't that what he said? The TPP, he's going to renegotiate it or something?
I'm not aware of that, but I haven't been keeping up on Trump. Trump makes so many different pronouncements that it's impossible to keep up with him.
Oh, well, if he says the same, a lot of opinions about so many things, then he's always right, right?
He contradicts himself most of the time.
Yeah.
In fact, he was talking about he'd make a better strategist when it comes to the Navy than the admirals. Well, who knows?
Yeah.
But, I mean, he hasn't been very good with his businesses, so how would anyone expect him to be good as president?
Well, he can say he's pretty successful. He's still super rich, still has a lot of power.
Yeah, well, that's right.
A measure of success, isn't it?
Well, he wouldn't be rich if it weren't for the American people. He's gone bankrupt so many different times.
Uh-huh. Bottom line is he's got tons of money, he owns an airplane and all kinds of stuff. So
right.
Is
He knows how to play the game.
economic consideration an important consideration when you consider whether someone's life is successful or not?
Yes and no, depending on how that person got their success. I had a roommate who read The Art of the Deal, and I read the book myself. And from what I could gather, Donald Trump was just a sleaze all the way through.
Mm.
I mean, he's refused to even release his tax returns. He intimidates people, and he'll sue someone at the spur of the moment if that will suit what he needs at the time.
Then how come he has such a large following of supporters? What is it about him that he has this percentage of people who support him and embrace him?
I think that number is overstated. I mean, even the Republicans themselves are trying to divorce themselves from Donald Trump. The only reason that people will be voting for Donald Trump is they want somebody different. They don't want a career politician. And Donald Trump isn't a career politician.
Isn't Hillary something different?
Hillary is a career politician. I mean,
oh, for sure.
You go back, I mean, she's been a senator, she's been Secretary of State, she's been the wife of one of the presidents. I mean, you can go back in her history. Her father was one of the heads of the Republican Party back in Chicago. Mm-hmm. So she has political running through her veins.
Who are you going to vote for in November?
Jill Stein.
I am too. Mm-hmm. And some people think I'm nuts, but there's other reasons they think I'm nuts too, so I'll go along with that. All right, Jill Stein. Why Jill Stein? Why would you support her?
Well, I believe it's important to support a third party, and that people have to make their expression known, that they're dissatisfied with the two parties that we're given, and Jill Stein is the only real alternative, unless you want to write in your own name. So
I'm going to put your name in.
Right.
Yeah. Class warfare. You think there's class warfare going on in this country or around the world?
Definitely there's class warfare. I mean, we have the rich and we have the poor and we have the middle class who are disappearing slowly but surely. At least in this country they're disappearing, but they are emerging in other countries such as in India and in China. And the corporations have basically turned their backs on the United States of America as a market when they can look at huge markets in India and in China. Mm-hmm. And they're going to go where the money is and where the people are. So the middle class in this country really does not bother the corporate giants.
Should there be a limit as to how much wealth an individual should have? Should an individual have, at a certain point, they have so many millions of dollars? But I have a sign that I wear that says, should anyone have more than $1 million? Is that a reasonable consideration?
I think $1 million is a reasonable consideration, and I think I'm not preventing anybody from making as much money as they want to make, but I think they should have a conscience and use that money in a way that helps other people as well. I mean, what good is, a super yacht or a super submarine or whatever? All these people waste their money. I mean, you could say, oh, they create jobs. They create very few jobs in the long run. And money is power. And what I believe is what Jimi Hendrix said was, when the power of love overcomes the love of power, then we'll have true world peace.
Power of love. What is that, the power of love?
Power of love is loving your fellow man, your fellow neighbor, your fellow human being throughout the world. That's what the power of love is, as opposed to splitting people into different races, ethnicities, and so on, which is what the British did. It's called divide and conquer. So what we need to do is embrace our fellow man and help your fellow man get along. So if you have something that they need, then you help them and donate what you have to help those that don't have it.
It sounds like you are. Oh, I forgot my point. Let's keep going. You mentioned the 16th Amendment.
Yeah, the 16th Amendment is where we brought in the income tax. A lot of people claim that the 16th Amendment was never properly ratified by the states, and that it was a sham that was pushed through the Congress, and basically it was pushed through by the banks to set up the Federal Reserve System, which now owns our country. And through the Federal Reserve System, we never really get anything paid for except interest on the national debt, when as a country we should be able to create our own money. We do not need the Federal Reserve System to do that for us.
Well, hasn't the Federal Reserve System been useful?
It has been useful, but it would be a lot more useful if our country was allowed to print its own money, as opposed to have an individual operation like the Federal Reserve. As you can see what has happened in Europe, where Britain wants to exit from the common union. The reason that Britain can do that is because they have their own currency. No other country could do that because they're tied to the euro. And once you're tied to the euro, that means you're going to have to answer to the strongest power, economic power in the euro, which is Germany. That's why Greece, I always said Greece, if they really wanted to be successful, they should have just told the euro to fly a kite and become the cheapest currency in the world and become the vacation capital of the world.
What's happening in the Middle East with Israel and Palestine? What's going on there?
Well, we have a situation where we have many people living in Gaza, which is basically an outdoor concentration camp.
An outdoor concentration camp. That's pretty strong.
I know, but that's basically what's going on there. I mean, if you're Israeli, you have all these different privileges that the Palestinians do not have. And that system just can't survive the way it is. I mean, it's just a time bomb that just keeps exploding time and time again.
But it's been going on for a long, long time. How soon will that situation change? Will the Palestinians ever have a homeland again?
Not the way things are going, not as long as the powers that be keep the Israelis in the position that they are and keep the Palestinians in the position they are. Northern Ireland had that problem for a long time, but they finally solved that problem. Finally, England got tired of it and decided, well, okay, we've had enough of this. And they finally came to an agreement. And now Northern Ireland is not quite a part of Southern Ireland, but pretty close to.
So there is a chance of the Israel-Palestinian situation turning out better.
There is a chance, but Israel will not be a true state of just Jews. That's the reason that they keep the Palestinians the way they are, because they know that they will not have the majority if they let the Palestinians have citizenship.
Oh man, we got to find something happy to talk about, because I'm getting depressed just talking about these things. Yeah. And money rules the world. You said that a moment ago, that money rules the world. Should we do away with money or what?
You have to have some kind of currency, obviously, to conduct economic business.
Mm-hmm.
But you shouldn't have the money just in a few, like in an oligarchy. The money needs to be spread around, and these wars just have to stop. The only way the wars will stop is the people that are making money off them have to be prevented from making money off selling arms and munitions and the rest of it, and stirring up trouble so that they can make money off it.
That's been going on for a long time, huh?
Yeah, it's been going on. The Bushes have been involved in it back to World War II, so, and there are others as well.
I heard on the news the other day, I guess yesterday, that the elder Bush said he was going to vote for Clinton. Did you hear that?
No, I didn't hear
I
that.
heard that on the news. Yeah, like, what is this? There was a big brouhaha about it, but it quieted down pretty quickly. And apparently it's true. He apparently said that. But I'm jumping all over the place here. You mentioned David Rockefeller. There's something about him that makes you feel good and warm. And David Rockefeller, what did he do that makes him like you so much?
Well, David Rockefeller is the one that came out and said that he was very appreciative of the major media, especially Time magazine and other magazines, for not telling the American people what was really going on with the money and the monetary system and keeping them in the dark all the time, and so that he and the rest of the bankers could rule the world. And what they would like to have is a world government run by bankers, so that we'd all be enslaved to the bankers and really would be very George Orwellian, if you might call it that.
You're still excited about how life is going, aren't you?
Well, I'm 66 years old, so I'll probably die before things really turn really badly.
You mentioned something about medicine and drugs. So you're...
Yeah, my experience has been that the drugs that I need to keep me comfortable and to live my life have been discouraged by OHSU, who have actually said, we want to get you off Klonopin, we want to get you off mirtazapine, because, well, these drugs are drugs that we feel are bad and people shouldn't be using them. I think it's up to the individual to decide what drugs they need and what drugs work best for them. I don't think it's up to any institution to try and limit what people can have, especially when it, I mean, why are they worried about people getting addicted to a drug when they're in their late 60s, early 70s? I mean, their life is not going to be the same if they don't have those drugs.
So the medication you're on now is working for you?
To some extent.
Uh-huh.
But, you know, if OHSU had their way, they would take me off the Klonopin, they would take me off the mirtazapine, and I have to take mirtazapine at night to sleep. So without a good night's sleep, I wouldn't be in good shape at all.
This has been going on with you for a number of years?
At least 3 years that I am aware of now. And when I was with Kaiser, Kaiser had no problem prescribing drugs for me.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the drugs that I am taking is, as a brand name drug, would cost $18,000 a month.
$18,000 a month.
$18,000 a month.
What if you had a national health care program, single payer? Would you still be having to pay that kind of money for the drug you need?
No, well, I'm not paying that money for the drug I need anymore because I'm now taking the generic version. But also, when I was with Kaiser, before I left Kaiser to go with OHSU, I went and, through my doctor at Kaiser, we got the actual generic drug for about $112 for a month's supply, which actually would be double a month's supply because it was a higher dosage. That drug came through India and Singapore. It took 3 weeks to get here, but that shows you just the way that the drug system works.
Why couldn't you get it in this country? Why did you have to go to Asia to get the drugs you need?
Because the price was prohibitive in this country. This country right now, the drug that I'm taking would cost, generically it costs $4,000 a month. But since I'm on Medicare, Medicare pays a bunch of it, then my drug company pays a bunch of it. Then I have a group called National Organization for Rare Disorders to pick up the balance.
So that keeps you going.
Yeah, keeps me going, and I'm not bankrupt.
Man, my hat's off to you. And you keep going.
Yeah, I keep trying to do the best I can. But people should not have to choose between whether they need to eat or, you know, get their drugs. I mean, there's no reason why the VA cannot negotiate with the drug companies and Medicare can't. That's only because the prescription drug companies pushed through a law in Congress that made it impossible for Medicare to negotiate drug prices. If the VA can do it, Medicare can do it.
Sure. Now, new subject. Seems like there's been a lot of problem with police and black people being killed by police. Do you think that's unusual or out of order or what?
As far as like black people, like Black Lives Matter, I think that they are correct, that this has been going on for a long time. I think it's just come to the forefront now because of all of our new technology, because people have cameras, because there are cameras in police cars, and people are not afraid to take pictures of things that are going on. When the police say, no, you can't do this. Well, that used to happen in the past, but now people say, screw you. If you're violating someone's rights, we have a right to put it on film. And I think that's one thing that new technology has allowed us to do, is to see people, make people more aware of what's going on, and the social media broadcasts that fact.
And the thin blue line, police departments don't like ordinary citizens having another view other than the one they want to present of what happened when somebody's killed.
That is true.
But it's mind-blowing because you've got a video of what actually happened, the person being shot, and somehow or other the police managed to present an alternative view. I don't know how they got that, but even what you're seeing with your eyes, they managed to overcome that. The number of law enforcement anymore that actually called up because of a killing, and they don't serve any time, they don't even get arrested, and it's just mind-boggling. Why is that?
I think that most people believe that the police do the right thing, and I think most policemen do the right thing, but there are quite a few bad apples in there, and those bad apples do a lot of damage. And I think unless you yourself have actually been involved in the judicial system, you don't really understand how the thing works. I've been there and I've been through it, and I know how it works. I know the police lie, I know the police plant evidence, I know the police do a lot of things. And there are a lot of people in jail for marijuana that should not be in jail. And we have more people incarcerated in this country than anywhere else in the world, which is absolutely ludicrous.
The prison industrial complex?
That's what we have. Well, we have privatized our prisons. As a result, we make more money by putting more people in jail, which is the wrong incentive. In fact, there was that case that came up with that judge in Pennsylvania who was getting paid off by the prisons for all the juveniles that he was putting in prison for ridiculous crimes that were like misdemeanors.
It's like a racket, an organization where...
Sure.
Oh, man.
There are a lot of things that people in this country are not aware of or don't want to know about these things. They just want to go about their own little happy lives, and, you know, live in their nice little houses in their nice little suburbs and drive their nice little SUVs and not worry about gas prices and everything's hunky-dory. And in the meantime, we were killing people all over the world, and we're imprisoning a lot of our population from the lower economic levels, and which profits business. And that is obviously wrong. I mean, if you want to imprison people, then go back and get the prisons back to where you just have no private companies involved. But you have to really look at the fact is, why is it that if you were accused of possession of crack cocaine, you went to jail for 20 years, and if you were accused of powder cocaine, you went to jail for 6 months. Now, tell me why that was the case. Can you answer that?
No, because I'm thinking about climate change. We haven't touched on that yet. I bet you've got some opinion about global warming or climate change. Do you think that exists, or is it just a fantasy?
I think global warming exists. I think because, I mean, I know I grew up in Los Angeles and I saw what happened with pollution and smog. I saw a lot of people who lived in inner city areas where there was a lot of smog.
It was awful then.
Yeah, it was very bad in the 70s. Then they finally cleaned it up with, they got more lead out of the gas, and that cleaned up much of the smog. But you have the same situation when I first came to Portland. They had smog because they were having all these warm days and people were driving their cars, and you have this inversion layer where the marine layer is on top and you have an inversion layer and all the pollutants stay at the bottom, and people tend to breathe those. I know for a fact when I was working back in the 70s, I used to live at the beach. I have to go to other areas that were further inland, like out in the Pomona Valley, and smog there was terrible. I'd come back, my eyes would be watering.
It's in the Los Angeles area.
In the Los Angeles area,
yeah.
Correct. So, I mean, you could see the actual physical results of air pollution.
But petroleum power, those resources, are we going to ever reach a stage where we have renewable energy sources instead of using fossil fuels? Is that going to happen?
I think it will happen eventually in the future, but I don't think it's going to happen in the near future. I mean, there are incentives for companies to come out with sustainable energy, but the government really has not pushed it, has not forced the oil companies to take all the monies they make off oil depletion allowance to put that into sustainable energy research. And that's what should have been done a long time ago, and we wouldn't be in the bind we're in right now with the climate change situation and global warming.
I thought the internet was a wonderful thing, and that kind of technology was going to make life better for everybody concerned. Are there any secrets anymore? Are you on a number of lists in Washington as far left as you are, or what?
I don't know. I don't think they pay too much attention to me. I mean, my dad wrote a letter. Excuse me. To old man Bush years ago, complaining about his policies and that he was a right-wing dictator and a bunch of other things, and nothing ever happened of it. So I don't think the government is worried about people like me. I mean, unless I really got involved and started doing something radical, like tearing down their communication systems and things like that, I don't think they really care. Most of the people are so brainwashed that they don't have to worry about any radicals.
Who's going to win in November?
Hillary Clinton, of course.
Do you think so? And what's going to happen after that when she wins?
When she wins, I think she's going to get indicted, and I think that the vice president will become president.
Time has run out,
Okay.
and I'm so glad because you're making me more depressed. I want you to look at that camera and tell the viewers anything you want to tell them, whatever comes to mind about what we talked about or anything else.
I just want to tell people, think for yourself, get educated, read as much as you can, get involved, do what you think your conscience dictates, and look out for your fellow man.
All right, well, it's been wonderful. Thank you for coming aboard.
Glad to be here.
And we'll see you some more later on. And I'm not going to wait for years again to bump into you again.
All right.
I keep my fingers crossed for you.
Okay.
So let's have a few public service announcements before we have to stop. Mr. Director in the control room, see my shows on the web. Google Don Baham YouTube, and there's hundreds of shows, interviews through the years, leftist, rightists, and all sorts of people on there. And join the American Civil Liberties Union. The ACLU is wonderful. It's protecting our civil liberties, those that are left anyhow. And I want to tell you how to end corporate personhood, because as long as corporations are considered people and money is speech, then our Constitution is just about gone, and it's heading in that direction. Okay, the humanists and humanism, go to the American Humanist Association, that website, and learn about humanism and humanists, because I'm a humanist, among other things. So let's say goodnight for now, and thanks for watching. Remember KFC, not Kentucky Fried Chicken, Dr. Don's KFC, kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind, be friendly, and be charitable to you too, and to you, and you too, Mike in the control room. Thanks again for watching. Good night.